Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Business 411. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Elizabeth, and I'm super excited for today's episode. But before we get into today, I just want to take a moment to say a huge thank you to everyone who has been super supportive of the podcast so far. I have so much more in store for you, so please continue to stream us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as check us out on YouTube, where you can listen to the episodes there as well. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. So today our special guest is Miss Naomi Garrick. She is the founder and CEO of Garrick Communications, and she's also known as the PR chick, which I think is super cool and interesting. Can't wait to get more into that as well. So let's get into it. So hi Naomi, how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm great, Elizabeth. I'm doing really, really well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great as well, thank you. And I was actually this morning on Twitter looking through the tweets from the Versus battle and just kind of cracking up at how everyone was just raving on about the night.
Of course, I did a 10-minute recap on my Instagram page this morning because I woke up still so, just feeling a sense of national pride and just excitement. And I think a little bit of life, more life than I've felt during this entire pandemic.
Yeah, and I think one of the most interesting things about last night was just realizing how much of a global impact we had. And I know that we have one, but to see it on such a scale again, and so many Jamaican flags being on the timeline and so many people tuned into it, it was very interesting to see. And I really loved to see everyone just kind of making a big deal out of it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so let's get into today's episode. You are the founder and CEO of a boutique PR agency known as Garrick Communications.
Yes, correct.
But before we get into Garrick, I just really want to get a feel of what you were doing before. What was your background looking like? Were you in a different industry? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure, no problem. So, my journey actually didn't start in PR and personal branding. At one point in my life, I thought I wanted to be a flight attendant. Maybe when I was about 13, because my mother used to fly with Air Jamaica back in the 80s. And, at that time, for me, it was a very glamorous job. And because there was no in-flight entertainment, the flight attendants used to actually do fashion shows and all kinds of exciting things for the long haul flights. But then when I actually started traveling with my parents, I realized that I really did enjoy flying. So that I quickly realized that being a flight attendant wasn't going to work out for me. However, as you know, in Jamaica, we have to choose subjects for our CXCs that will determine what we want to do as our profession in life, or where we want to go to university, or what we want to study. And definitely for me, between the ages 13 to 14, I definitely didn't know what I wanted to do. So I ended up doing subjects that I was good at. Same thing happened for A levels, just picked subjects that I was still pretty good at because even at that stage, 16, 17, 18, I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then, you get to that point where you're supposed to choose your university and what you want to major in. And I ended up going with hotel and tourism management because my best friend at the time was going to study tourism management. And that's why I ended up in hospitality because people believed I had the personality for it.
Okay, so flight attendant dreams didn't quite pan out. And then you said you studied what you liked throughout high school, and now you're into tourism management hospitality. What does that look like for you studying that at university?
So I studied that for 4 years. I did not end up graduating because I still needed to pass two subjects, I believe. It could have been accounts and statistics, but definitely a mathematical subject, which I'm still not my favorite things today. But I went straight into the hospitality industry. So I ended up doing a training manager program with Super Clubs, which used to be the number one hotel chain in the Caribbean before Sandals. And so in their training manager program, you work at you get to experience working at all of their properties across the Caribbean. You're basically being trained to be a manager. And after you do that for 2 to 3 years, you get a full-time job in a managerial position. So really what it does is it fast tracks you through the company. And so it was a great opportunity to work with super clubs. But I ended up in the sales department first at one of their hotels. And after working in that space for about 6 months, I ended up meeting the general manager for their flagship property, which was Grand Leader and Grill at the time. And there was something about my personality and the way that I engage with people and the way that I approach my work, which I mean, I think is true to this day, that he was attracted to for the Grand Leader and the Grill side of the business, the sales side, that he thought I'd make a great sales manager. So he offered me a job on the spot, which was great because then I got to break that training manager contract where you don't really get paid a salary because it's really about the experience. And to now work full time for the number one property in the chain in the grill, as a sales manager for the Northeast USA, which meant I got to travel a lot on behalf of the company.
Okay, so how long were you in that position for?
I was doing that for about maybe 2 years. And then again, I started to quickly realize that maybe the hospitality industry is not the right industry for me. I love it. Tourism is our number one industry in Jamaica. However, a couple things happen. One, when your lecturers tell you it's a 24-hour industry, it really, really, really is. And I lived on property. So as a manager living on property, you are one of the first people that anyone calls if there's a problem or a situation that needs to be rectified. Two, I noticed that the females that were at the top of their game in the industry were always at work. And I started to wonder, if you want to have a family, you know, how do you do this in this industry where you are always on call? And so I made a decision to come back to Kingston, but still not sure what I wanted to do because I don't want to be in hospitality, but I also don't have a degree, a completed degree. And so I just didn't know where to turn. And luckily, I ended up meeting Kimani Robinson, who at the time had just started Reggae Entertainment Television, RETV. And cable was new. It was the newest innovating thing in media right now in Jamaica at the time. And he offered me a spot to be the sales coordinator and then sales manager. And so I ended up working there as a sales and marketing manager for almost 5 years. And during that time, I got approached by someone to do publicity work for one of our local entertainers. And at first, I was just like, why would you be asking me? I don't really do a lot of PR for RETV. But he just was so convinced that I was the person to help guide this young lady's career from a media perspective. And so I took on the challenge. I went, I got all of the books I could find about PR and being a publicist. And what I didn't realize is that my experience at RETV, because of my personality and relationships is a core value for me, I had developed real relationships with all the decision makers in the media industry. So the editors, the producers, the directors, the people that decide what we see, hear, and watch and listen to in the media. And they also saw me as a very credible source of information. So when I started sending out press releases and photos and video clips, they started being placed in the different entertainment media spaces. And so the success of that led to other entertainers approaching me to do their publicity work. And so I became an entertainment publicist while still at RETV.
So at that point, were you just solely focused on your career or were you balancing your personal life with that as well?
During that period in 2005, I was pregnant with my son. And again, I felt like another shift where I wasn't sure if this was the right space for me, entertainment, because in the role that I had at the time and dealing with the different entertainers meant I had to be out and about a lot, different hours, long hours. And I wanted to have some kind of structure in my family life where I would have more time to spend with my child, the flexibility. Um, and so I was again faced with a challenge where I wasn't sure what direction I wanted to turn. Luckily, an opportunity actually came up in hospitality, which I surprised myself knowing that I didn't want to really be back in that space. But it was in the role of corporate communications manager for a new boutique hotel that was opening in Kingston. And so I applied for the job, even though I don't believe I had corporate communications experience. But what I did have was experience in the hospitality industry as well as experience in the media. And so I ended up getting that job. But after 3 months, again, I realized that hospitality is not for me or the hospitality industry. But there was an opportunity in the PR industry because at that time, there were a lot of advertising agencies that maybe had a a public relations executive, but there were not many agencies that focused solely on PR. And I wanted to focus on the lifestyle brands. And so I decided to jump into entrepreneurship literally. I didn't have any savings for it. I didn't have an office. I literally just had my laptop, a camera, my cell phone, and me. And I jumped headfirst into entrepreneurship. And again, because of relationships, one of our media companies here heard that I was starting this journey and asked if they could write an article about me in the papers. And that article ended up being the cover story for that publication. And that's how I got my first client for Garrick Communications that was on a retainer, monthly retainer contract. And my company turned 10 years old last year. And to this day, we've never advertised our business. It has been through relationships, referrals, and of course, results. And so, right now, as an agency, Garrett Communications really helps individuals, brands, and companies to be seen, heard, and experienced by their ideal audience. And we do that by leveraging media relations as well as media activations. So, we engage traditional media like print, radio, TV, as well as digital media like websites, blogs, social media, and then of course experiential marketing, and that would be like hosting an event or a launch or some kind of product engagement. And then over the last 3 years, I actually started doing personal branding coaching. So I have launched 3 books about personal branding. I'm now an international speaker. I just launched my online course for personal branding. And in my role as a personal branding coach, I really help individuals and entrepreneurs and executives to get clarity on who they are, understand their unique value, and how to communicate it to their ideal audience, both on and offline, in order for them to stand out in their area of expertise by building a better personal and professional brand.
Okay, wow, that is amazing. But before we continue, I just want to circle back to something that you said about when you applied for the corporate communications job, how you didn't really feel like you had the qualification. And that's just a testament to how so many people think, especially women, is that if we don't tick off every single box on a job application, the job requirements, we're not going to apply for the job. And I think that's so damaging because at the end of the day, you were able to transfer the skills that you had learned from your previous position into this role and excel. So I think it's important for us to remember that, to not sell ourselves short, and to know that we're capable of doing whatever we need to do. Just think about what you can bring to the table. But I just want to reflect even more on what you said and your whole journey. And to someone looking on, they might look and say, oh, this was, pretty seamless almost.
Definitely was not seamless.
Yeah,
Was
I
not
know it
seamless.
wasn't. I know it wasn't. Absolutely not. But
a lot of bumps in the road.
yeah, I can only imagine. And it's just great to see that as well because so many people have that false narrative that if it's meant for you, it's going to be perfect and it's not going to come with its challenges. But even if you're going after your passion or you're going after something that you know is meant for you, you're still going to go through ups and downs because, it's life, and life isn't always like one straight road. You're going to go through turns and curves, and, just remember that.
Absolutely.
Yes, and even you talking about you having to go and do your research and learn about PR and take the time to really become an expert or try at least to become an expert and, just going through the motions where that was concerned, it just shows that for anything you have to put in the work.
And at that time, we didn't have Google yet. So if you wanted to learn about something, you needed to read about it or find someone else that was an expert in that space and speak with them.
So yeah, so you said you received your first major client based on the exposure that you had received in that publication. So before then, were you just doing one-offs or, was it more of like a side hustle? And then when you officially started Garrett Communications, did you bring over those old clients or did you start fresh?
Well, I would say Garrett Communications started in entertainment PR. So I was a publicist for maybe 5 to 6 different local entertainers. So I was known first in entertainment as an entertainment publicist. But when I decided to leave RETV and go into corporate communications with the hotel, I also realized that I really loved working in the lifestyle side. And so when I had moved over to working full time in the hotel, I stopped doing PR actually. So I was doing it as I guess, a side hustle while I was still at RETV. But it wasn't a conflict of interest because it was still entertainment and was entertainers that we worked with. So it really just helped with the relationship overall. Um, but then when I decided to go on my own, I had no clients because now I was going into the corporate world, business PR, so business and lifestyle, so working with companies and not individuals. So I didn't have any clients at the time when I was approached by the company that had hired me based on the article. So that was my first corporate client. And then from then, it was really just more about awareness, more people seeing the article, people asking me what I was doing, or just hearing about the experience, networking, ensuring that I was at the right events, telling people what I was doing. Um, and that pretty much was it.
Right. So you'd say then that your main strategy was word of mouth marketing.
Oh, absolutely. I was absolutely word of mouth marketing because we weren't using social media yet. In definitely not in that way. So we didn't have all the great channels that are available to us now. Most of them for free to really promote your business to a wider audience. So I had to really rely on one, doing a great job at what I did, and then two, so that I could actually start attracting the right people to the brand and to the company.
Right. So when you first started, then what would you say was the most difficult or the most challenging thing about starting your business?
Sure. I would say the financial side. As I had mentioned, I didn't graduate because that wasn't my area of expertise, money, and definitely not business. I wasn't one of those people that wanted, like, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's something that just happened. And so one of my challenges has always been, and to this day, I'm still learning. It's how to run a business, you know, how to keep track of your accounting, how to manage payroll when you start having a team, how to budget, how to project. And so what I did over time is that I continuously look for opportunities to learn more about being an entrepreneur and learn more about business and applying for different programs that would give me that opportunity to hear from experts, or other entrepreneurs or coaches that could actually help me in the areas that I was not great at. So I'm a creative at heart. So I'm very good at ideation and doing things to bring value to my clients. Business, I'm getting better at it every day. And so it's very important to understand as an entrepreneur where your strengths lie and where your weaknesses lie so that you can either get the support that you need to help you in those areas, so that you can focus more on what makes you great.
Yeah, I think a recurring theme among entrepreneurs is just having a good, solid team to help you. And even with you talking about learning payroll, how to do that for your
Hmm.
employees, just knowing that, okay, you need a solid team and then you also need to know how to manage them and how to develop them. So, in terms of the team, how or when rather did you start building out your team? How soon after you started the business?
I would say, because I've had different team members over time in different capacities, either like part time or then full time or project based. But I would say I feel like I had my first real employee maybe 2 years after the business. Right now, where Garrick Communications is, we're still boutique. So we remain small, but we execute very big strategies and ideas for our clients. But I have a very intimate team right now. It just consists currently of three of us, including me, and we serve our portfolio of clients. Um, but yeah, I think over time, just depending on what the needs were, that's when I would have a team. And the team that I have right now is very, very solid. They are totally aligned with the culture of the company, which is something I also had to learn about, as an entrepreneur, about creating that company culture so that you're attracting the right kinds of people to work with you. Because as an entrepreneur, your team really is an extension of you and your brand and your core values. And so going forward, I had to ensure that whoever was working with me would actually be a great reflection of me and the company as well. And I did have some challenges with employees over my 10-year period where there was a point where I had a team of 3 and I had to just let go everyone because they weren't performing and I clearly was not leading in the way that I should have been, if my entire team just wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing. And so I went back to a stage where it was just me. It went back to a company of one, and that was like maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. And I had to refocus, re-strategize, learn more about the business so that I could start building the right team, which is what I have right now.
Yeah, and I think a tricky thing about leadership that many people don't consider is that you're dealing with different people with different characteristics, different
Right.
personalities, different unique traits, you know? So you really have to be able to figure that out and how to gel a team together to work at, efficiency and, to work well with each other, essentially.
Leading a team is very, very important, being able to lead a team.
Right, exactly. Uh, so moving forward, what would you say then was a moment? Can you identify a moment where you thought, the business is going somewhere? This looks like it actually could be something sustainable. Can you identify a moment like that or not really?
I've actually had several. I'd say that I've had several moments like that. I think entrepreneurship is a very up and down experience, right? Some people refer to it almost as a bipolar experience because there are times when the company is doing really well, you think it's amazing, this is like the best thing ever. You're making a lot of sales, you have amazing plans, the team is performing, and then there are other times where you're just like, I need to go back to corporate Jamaica. This is not working for me. I'm unhappy, or you lose a client, or you lose a team member, and so. And I'm still on that journey where some days I think it's the best thing ever, and then some days I consider just going full time into personal branding coaching. And so I don't think I can pinpoint a specific point because we've had some amazing wins. We've done like work with Richard Branson. We've done launches for major brands locally and internationally. But then we've had some down periods as well where we didn't do so great, or we didn't really quite gel with a client, or we had to let go of team members that weren't really reflecting the brand. So yeah, definitely can't pinpoint a point. I just know it's been an exhilarating journey. And my favorite quote is actually "The journey is the reward," which is a Chinese proverb. And it really just speaks to all of that, the fact that everything that we do in life is a part of our journey and it makes us who we are today. And so what I do is I just ensure that I'm learning from every step in this process or in this journey that we're on.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning experience. I think in general, you always have to be growing and learning. I wanted to ask though, this is something that was brought to my attention, and I thought I would get your thoughts on it, maybe some opinions that you have. But did you think it was more difficult for you being a woman trying to start your business in, PR, or did you find that you were able to level out the playing field where that was concerned?
That's an interesting question. I think Jamaica is special in that way because we have a lot of female business leaders, right? However, at the time when I started in PR, there were a lot of advertising agencies, and most of our advertising agencies are run by men. So I was entering a world or a space where there were not many female leaders. There was this one amazing pioneer, Jean Laurie Chin, at the time, and that's who stands out to me. She still has her agency, Pro Communications, to this day. But other than that, I didn't really know, and if they were out there, I didn't know who they were. And so I was just stepping into a space where I just knew that I had value. I knew that I was bringing something different to the table. And I just went out with it. I don't think I had specific challenges as a female because I always made my voice heard. So even if I was sitting in a boardroom full of men, you guys must have me here for a reason. So I'm going to show you why you asked me to be here. And so I think the mindset is everything. And so I never ever went into a situation or a setting thinking, oh my gosh, I'm the female, I'm the only female, this might be a challenge. Nope. I knew that I had a seat at that table and I knew that I was coming with value.
Right. Coming with value, that's amazing because I think so many people underestimate how much value they have. And they go into a room and they're intimidated. And I really only ask because, I know so many women especially deal with imposter syndrome and feeling like they're not, worthy or they're not, valuable enough to make certain contributions. So I just wanted to hear your opinions on that because, you know, it's very important for us to share that we do in fact have value and we matter and our capabilities are strong.
So there's this amazing books. I read a lot. And there's this amazing book by Mika Brzezinski, and it's actually called Know Your Value. And it's a book I believe anybody, not just females, even though it was written, from a female's perspective and experience, because it really just speaks about that. And let's not get it twisted either. There definitely have been times where I have had imposter syndrome over the last 10 years. But then you have to come back to knowing your worth and knowing your value and knowing that you do have a seat at this table.
Absolutely. Could you repeat the name of that book for our listeners?
Sure, it's called Know Your Value, and it's by Mika Brzezinski.
Okay, great. Thank you. And do you have any more recommendations that you could give for books that we could read?
Sure, I read a lot. So my two favorite books are The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, as well as The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. That book changed my life literally in 2017.
Yes, I heard about that book, but I haven't
Yeah.
gotten the chance to read it as yet.
It's really, really amazing. Because really it's just about Shonda Rhimes, and if, for those who don't know, she is the creator of Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder, Grey's Anatomy, and so much more. And she decided that she had chosen this year that was going to be her year of yes because her sister said that she never says yes to anything. And so she challenged herself that year to do all the things that scared her the most, have the scary conversations, do the scary things, all the things that she used to say no to. And so after reading that book, I was inspired to make 2017 my year of yes because I read it on January 1, 2017. And it literally changed my life by me just stepping out of my comfort zone and jumping into the things that I've been afraid of. It just made my business expand, it made my life expand, it expanded my mindset and opportunities. And I haven't looked back since.
Right, I am definitely adding that book to my reading list. I also like to read a lot, so I'm definitely adding that. And what you said about mindset, that's so true as well because so many people underestimate or don't realize the power of their mind and how much their mental health basically spills over into basically every facet of your life. So it's important to have a strong mindset.
Absolutely. Mindset is everything. And also being aware of who you let into your circle of genius. So ensuring that you have people around you that are encouraging you, that you can learn from, that supporting you. And it doesn't have to be people in your physical space. Like I tell people all the time that Oprah is a part of my circle of genius, and I don't know her personally, but I am a student of Oprah. I go to her conferences, I read her books, I join her webinars. I'm always learning. And you can do that as well. You can look to people that are online as well as in your personal life that you can let be a part of your own circle that's continuing to motivate you and help you in the areas that you may be weak in.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's interesting too that you said Oprah is a part of your circle, even though you don't personally know her. I'm going to have to start using that one for myself. Yeah, but I want to go ahead and address something that I noticed on your social media pages.
Sure.
Yes, and that really is how you refer to yourself on your page as the PR chick. And I thought that was very interesting, and I wanted to hear the backstory behind that. Did you come up with that name yourself? Did it stem from your personal coaching? What's the story behind that?
It's something that just came up naturally. So I have a colleague of mine that's also one of our amazing suppliers. And she already referred to me and my team as the chicks, the PR chicks. And then we had clients that also started just calling us, oh, these are my PR chicks, because we most of the times that I've had the company, it's been females working with us. So we've always just been kind of called the PR chicks by some of our clients and close colleagues or suppliers. And then one day, I decided to just really run with it, make it a part of our brand. We got a logo done for PR Chick, and then we changed out all of our signatures on our emails. So instead of it saying senior executive or associate at Garrick Communications or PR consultant, our signatures say PR Chick. So senior PR Chick at Garrick Communications, or I am the lead PR Chick instead of CEO at Garrick Communications. And so people just started referring to all of us as the PR chicks, or as PR chicks. And then I kept the moniker the PR chick to show that I am the PR chick. And so when I was creating my workbook, I wanted to use that as well, because I wanted to be known as the PR chick, and I'm the PR chick that's guiding you to building a better personal brand. And I think after I put it on the workbook 2 years ago, that's when the PR chick really took off, because people who didn't know me personally started identifying me as a PR chick. So I would see people on the road and they're just like, are you the PR chick? Or the Domino's pizza man came to my house, and when he was leaving, he's like, okay, PR chick. And I was just like, how do you know that? He's just like, I read the newspapers. And so PR chick has just taken on a life of its own. And so I have run with that. I use it on everything. So my workbook is called a PR Chicks Guide. My online course is called a PR Chicks Guide to Building Your Personal Brand. So I use PR Chick for everything, because it has become an identifier for me and what I do, locally and internationally.
Yeah, I'd say that's personal branding at its finest if I've ever seen it.
Something like that, yes.
I mean, I don't know if that's what you'd refer to it as, but that's what it sounded like to me when you were explaining it. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Okay, great. So moving forward with everything that's going on now with coronavirus, we're all quarantined, we're all locked on lockdown rather. How have you adjusted for that at Garrick Communications?
It has definitely affected us. We Most of our clients are either on a retainer program, which means they pay us monthly to do PR services for them, or we get projects, and projects can span between 2 weeks to 3 months. We had a lot of projects lined up for the year because we do a lot of events and activations for our clients. Of course, all the projects are on pause because we don't know what's happening. Some of our retainer clients have actually had to end our retainers because they don't know what's happening within their companies. As it relates to working from home, thankfully, based on what we do, we don't have to physically meet. And we had already started before COVID-19 doing online meetings with our clients. So we either did a Zoom meeting or a Google Meet, just because we realized that it was more practical as it related to time. And we could actually be a lot more productive in shorter online meetings than jumping in a car, going in traffic, sitting down, getting settled, and then meeting maybe for 20 minutes and then driving back to the office. So we had started doing that from before. We also, based on COVID-19, moved into a smaller location, just because it didn't make sense anymore to have this big office space that we're paying this huge monthly fee if we're not going to be in the space for 3 months. So we made decisions very quickly about the next steps for us. So now we're just getting back into meeting in person twice a week, and then hopefully at the end of next week, we probably won't ever go back to working 9 to 5. Well, we were never a 9 to 5 company, but working every day of the week in office. We'll probably go down to 2 out of office days and 3 in office days, and that's because I trust my team and I know that they can still be very productive even at home. And we were doing this sometime before this. So that part wasn't so hard. Now we're reviewing our strategy to see some of those other projects or online activations that our clients have been asking us for years that we didn't do, that maybe now is the time to actually really start exploring those other revenue streams that our clients have actually been asking us to provide for them.
Right. And you said you had already been doing that before COVID. So it's kind of just getting into the groove of that now and putting it in action.
It's something that was coming from before, but we weren't exploring because our plates were already so full with just traditional PR activations that we were doing.
Right.
But now we do see the need even more, and the opportunity. So we're exploring, seeing what else can we do during this time.
Okay, gotcha. Understood.
Yeah.
So before I let you go, I wanted to know if you had any words of advice or any words of encouragement that you could offer for our listeners.
Sure. So two things is one, just remember that your journey is your journey, and there is nobody in the world that has had the journey that you've had. To take the time, learn the lessons, because that's what's important. Learn from failure. If you're not failing, you're not growing. So don't see failure as a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's a great thing if you can understand the failure, appreciate it, and learn from it, and grow from it, and find the opportunities within the failure. And I would also say read a lot, right? Read a lot, research, get information. They say that success leaves clues. And for the first time ever, we have access to the entire world. We can reach out via a DM, we can reach out via a phone call, a tweet, a message. So use this technology that you have to reach out to the people that need to know who you are, or that you need to connect with in a real way.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great advice. Before you go, could you share some of your social media platforms with us so that we can keep up with you, keep up with Garrick Communications?
Sure. So on LinkedIn, it's Naomi Garrick. My website is iamnaomigarrick.com. And on Instagram, it's the PR chick or Naomi Garrick.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Naomi, for taking the time to speak with me today. I look forward to seeing what you and Garrick Communications come with in the future. I wish you all the best, all the success. It was great having you. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode with Naomi. Please make sure to check out all of her social media platforms. Go and look up Garrick Communications, learn more about them, and keep up with them because they're doing great things in PR right now. And it's always great to keep up with these Jamaican entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things. So definitely something to consider. And yeah, continue to stream the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as check out the YouTube channel where you can also listen there. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in. God bless and see you next time.